All right. Okay, so this right here is a booklet that is going to correspond with some of the things that you'll see here in the presentation. The reason that we brought the booklet and the presentation, because this process is really extensive, it's really convoluted. So what we like to do is repeat a lot of the terms, repeat a lot of the process, so as you're going through it, it allows it to be a lot less frustrating. Because the process itself is just cumbersome, it can be extremely frustrating.
The process of what?
Buying a home, yeah. So we like to talk about it here. You know, once we do identify a property that you want to maybe move on, we're going to reiterate some of the things that we talked about today. It's because there's a lot of definitions that's going to be thrown at you. There's a lot of things that the lender's going to be asking for. It can get kind of crazy, right? So we want to mitigate that as a real estate company. We want to buffer that as much as we can, okay? So as I'm going through it, it's only 2 pages here. As I'm going through it, we're just going to fill in some of the blanks as I'm talking about some of the items on the presentation, okay? All right, so first thing is understanding the market. So as a buyer, would you prefer working with a salesperson or would you prefer working with a consultant? So the first one is consultant. Which would you prefer working with?
I would say consultant.
Consultant.
When you say salesperson, exactly what do you mean? Somebody that's trying to sell me the house?
Mm-hmm.
Like the owner themselves?
Just somebody just like you going there to, and I hate using them, but it's the best analogy that I have. Like you going there to buy a car, maybe a used car salesman, and some of the tactics and things that they use. How do you feel when a person? That's what we say a salesperson.
And a consultant meaning somebody who's not really trying to sell me nothing, they're just trying to give me the information.
Yeah, just guide you through the process.
Of course, a consultant.
Yeah. Most people want consultants, right? So, you know, as we've designed our real estate company, we've designed our real estate company for you to work with specialists, for you to work with consultants. And what that means is that you're always in control of the decision. We're just here to offer you enough information where you can make an educated decision to counsel you through it. So, buyer's market versus the seller's market. You know what kind of market we're in right now?
Seller's market.
Okay, so a lot of times people can say it's a buyer's or a seller's market, but what does that really mean? Like, do you know what it means when we say we're in a seller's market right now?
Well, to me, I see houses not lasting long, so
Okay.
it seems like the ball would be in the seller's court.
Okay.
I would think it's something with the higher interest rate, the values of the homes.
Okay. You guys are real close. And matter of fact, you're spot on, Roland. Under a seller's market, the houses move very fast. What determines a seller's market versus a buyer's market really has to do with supply and demand, really, in a simplistic term, supply and demand. When it's a buyer's market, there's a larger supply of homes. So since there's a larger supply of homes and there's a smaller supply of buyers, it makes it more advantageous as a buyer because everybody got something for sale. When it's a seller's market, that means that there's a lower amount of supply of homes and there's a higher amount of supply of buyers. So that means that now the seller is in the better position when it comes to the supply and demand of it all. So some of the symptoms of a seller's market is what Roland said. The houses move faster, they sell faster, the prices are higher. Now, as far as the interest rates, doesn't really have a lot to do with it being a buyer's or a seller's market. But what the interest rates do and what it's doing for us right now is that although it's a seller's market, it's still advantageous for buyers because the interest rates are so low. That makes sense? Because see, in a buyer's market, the interest rates can be high, but the buyer's still gonna get a great deal because the price is gonna be low. But if in a seller's market, we can still make it to where it's good for the buyer by keeping those interest rates low. So that's why we're glad that the Fed has kept the interest rates so low for so long. But you know, just recently, last week, they increased the interest rates. Did y'all know that?
We knew it was coming, but I thought it would maybe be in January.
They did it. They did it last week. They increased it by 1/4 point. So the thing really isn't about if they're going to do it or when they're going to do it. It's about how many times are they going to do it? Like it's just not a one and done. Like they're going to increase it again. They're going to increase it again because they want to get to a comfortable point, and they feel comfortable about the way that the economy is moving. So now they want to kind of take the reins off those interest rates. So, you know, it's better to kind of get locked in now at the lower amount, right? even though it's a seller's market. All right, and again, so market conditioning, and we talked about the listing inventory is down, so that's what makes it a seller's market. All right, so when inventory is down, demand goes up, so that's demand from a buyer standpoint goes up, and as demand goes up, then the prices go up. So the demand is what drives the prices up in a seller's market. So that's just something that we definitely want to be conscious of as we're going and we're looking for homes. Okay, so pre-approval. So you've already gotten pre-approved?
We did, but I don't like what's going on with the loan officer.
Okay.
So I don't want to use them again, so I'm probably gonna have to go through it all over.
That's not a problem. And we can help you with that. At this point, everybody has access to the same pool of money, right? So when it comes to identifying a loan professional that's gonna work with you, you really need to be looking at it from an aspect of service and responsiveness. Like I really don't like when I'm working with clients and we can't get the loan officer on the phone. We got a house that we want, we got a couple of questions about the financing that we're gonna put on it, and then the loan officer just goes dark, right? And I understand things happen, but at least pick up the phone and give me a phone call in 24 hours. Don't have me waiting 72 a week, and then I got into something. No, the service, the professionalism is bad. So that's why even when we decide to partner up with finance people that we refer our clients to, we got to make sure that they're going to be an extension of us. They got to have the same level of professionalism that we have to ensure for you all that the process is as smooth as possible, right? Again, we're already dealing with something that's just naturally cumbersome. The home buying process is naturally cumbersome. We got to be here to navigate and to stable out the waters as best as possible, especially for people that have never done it before. So we have some recommendations for you from a lender standpoint, or if you have some people that you've been thinking about, you can use them as well. But the thing about our recommendations is we already have a working relationship with them, so we can kind of get things to move a little faster when dealing with them. Okay, so the benefits of financing, it turns you into a cash buyer. It saves you money when you're already pre-approved. It gives you leverage in a multiple offer situation, and that's extremely key in a seller's market, because when demand is high, then we'll get into situations to where we're competing with other buyers. Well, now if we don't have a pre-approval letter, and the buyer does have a pre-approval letter when they submit their offer, then that puts us in even if they're offering less than us, that puts us in a worse position. So that's why I say it gives you leverage in a multiple offer situation, and then vice versa. If we're competing with somebody else and they're giving a higher offer than us, but they don't have a pre-approval letter, then it gives us a better chance of getting approved than the seller going with somebody else that doesn't have a pre-approval letter. So, and then it gives you confidence. So, as we're looking at homes and we're deciding on something that we want to move forward with, because we're pre-approved, we have that confidence of, hey, we're a solid buyer. Okay, so MLS Internet, how do we get paid? So all of our fees are paid by the seller. Did y'all know that?
I think so.
Yeah. So we get paid by the seller, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more, because the way that the state of Texas is set up, by law, when it comes to representation, you represent the person that pays you. But in this particular situation, okay, so I'll put it like this. Unless there's something in writing between the buyer and the buyer's agent, then representation hasn't been created, right? And by the state of law, if representation has not been created by written agreement, then by law, the court says that you represent the person that pays you. So unless there is something in writing, we represent the seller, because the seller pays us, right? So, but again, we'll talk about that again. There's certain ways that we can create representation, so when it is time to negotiate, we can negotiate for you. Because if we don't do that by law, when it's time to negotiate, we have to negotiate on behalf of the seller, because he's the one that's paying our fee. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so all brokers have access to the same information, which is true. All brokers, all realtors, real estate companies, they have access to the same information. Matter of fact, a lot of clients, a lot of buyers have access to the same information that we have as brokers. There was a time then the broker did have the information. We were the gatekeeper. Well, once the internet arrived, that gate was destroyed. So when it comes to information, the consumer has just as much information as we have.
So you don't know anything at all that we can't see?
Now, well, let me clarify. Although you have access to the same information, because we do this full time, this is what we do every day, all day, we get the information faster, right? So it's speed is which is really defining the difference between us and just a consumer. Now, if you wanted to take 30 days and just research real estate, you can get that information. But most people don't have time to do that. Most people have jobs. Most people have careers. They have other things that they have to do, right? And even then, it'll still be tough for them to catch up with me because I've been doing this for 11 years. The company's been doing this for 8 years. Every day, all day, we've been digging in there and getting the information and the data. So we're still ahead of most people when it comes to real estate and real estate information. Yet, everybody has the same access. That makes sense? Yeah. And then, again, that's what kind of determines the difference between two real estate companies, right? Because you can have two real estate companies, both of them licensed, but still one is better than the other one because of the time and the effort they're putting into sharpening their craft, getting the information, and putting our buyers in the best situation when it comes to negotiating and just this process in general. Yeah. Okay, so for sale by owners, have you guys seen any for sale by owners as you're driving around?
I don't think I noticed it.
Well, it was at one little sign, but I couldn't find the house. It was just a number.
Just the number, okay. So when you see for sale by owners, we encourage you to call us first, and the reason is because for sale by owners will pay our commission as well. And one of the things that separates us from most real estate companies is that although we have the MLS or HAR.com, which is the database of inventory, we've created a secondary database of inventory. And in that database are for sale by owners, foreclosures, investment properties. So it's the secondary market for which most of them don't even make it to the MLS because they're not using realtors. So not only will you have access to the stuff that's on HAR.com, you'll have access to, as we're populating that data, and we populate that database every day because we've been here for 8 years, so people will call us. We get investors to call us. We get for sale by owners to call us that have questions or any of that. So all we do is we take that data, we take that information, and we populate it. So if we get clients that are looking for something like that, we can quickly get to that information, and we can put that opportunity in front of one of our clients. And one of the things that we talked about, Dana, we talked about you all, getting a fixer-upper type property. Mm-hmm. So that property is not necessarily really going to be on the MLS. Something like that is probably going to be on this secondary market of properties that we keep track of and that we update on a regular basis.
Is this something that you guys just have access to, or this is something that other
agents?
Yeah.
So this is something that we created. So nobody else has access to it other than Brooks and Davis salespeople or consultants. So this is something that we've created over the last couple of years and we've created the system to where it continually adds new properties to it, and it continually takes on properties that have been sold already. Now, it's not as robust as HAR.com, but it's a resource that we have access to that we can use to facilitate the buyer-seller transaction. Yeah, so, okay, so for sale by owners, they will pay our commission. Now, the reason they'll pay our commission is because most for sale by owners, when they don't use a real estate professional, they hire an attorney, right? And they hire an attorney to do the paperwork. Well, the thing about attorneys is that how is the pay structure when it comes to attorneys? Like how do attorneys get paid? Do y'all know?
By the time that they
client.
By the client, they get a retainer, but then they're also paid by the hour.
Yeah.
Okay. So what that means is that if the for sale by owner pays an attorney to do the paperwork, and remember, and I keep going back to this, it's a convoluted process. It's a tough process when it comes to real estate. And there's so many details you got to stay on top of. There are times when the transaction doesn't go through. So have y'all ever heard of a real estate transaction getting down to the wire and we call it a bust out, it busts out and doesn't move forward? Mm-hmm. All right, so now for sale by owner has paid that attorney, but does that attorney get his money back for all the documents that he drawn up? No. And there's so many variables that for sale by owner doesn't have control over that if it busts up, well, you just out of your money. So when we talk to the for sale by owner and we explain to them as a real estate agent, we don't get paid unless it closes, right? And it may not be the smartest occupation to be in. Most people get their money when they do what they supposed to do. But when realtors, we get paid off of results. So that's why we gotta be just as committed as y'all as you all finding a house. And if it's a person selling a house, we gotta be just as committed to that seller, to him selling that house, because that's how we take care of our family. That's how we get compensated.
Okay, so with the for sale by owners with you guys' database, since they don't have a real estate agent, is it a possibility you're gonna be representing them and representing us at the same time?
So we would, well, okay, so it's a possibility that a Brooks and Davis consultant may represent that for sale by owner, but it won't be the same person that's representing you guys. So even if we get into a situation, and we'll see that later too, it's called intermediary. We get into that situation to where Brooks and Davis is the company that both of these agents work for. You still have somebody that's solely looking out for your best interest in the transaction. Just like that seller has somebody looking out solely for the interest of that seller in the transaction when it comes to the negotiations. Now, what defines representation is written paperwork, right? So that means, you know, having something signed by you all saying that that consultant works with you, and having something signed by that seller. Now, with some of the for sale by owners, they don't want to sign anything. They don't want representation, but they're just willing to pay the commission if you bring them the buyer. So in that situation, nobody represents that seller. He's still on his own. Now, as a professional, there's a certain level of customer service that we have to offer to him. So we'll still help him out with the transaction. We'll still help him out with the paperwork, you know, with the title company. We'll give him information. We'll help him, but we can't give him anything from a negotiating standpoint. Like, we always got to be looking out for the best interest of our client. So they may get taken advantage of. I don't want to say getting taken advantage of, but they have the same opportunity to get representation. They choose not to get it. So if they choose not to get it, we got to get you guys the best deal, because we're the ones, we represent you. We looking out for your best interest. Now, in the event that a situation happens like that, then we're going to disclose it to everybody and say, hey, this seller right here didn't have an agent. We put John Smith on it. He's a Brooks and Davis consultant. He met with the seller liked him. They agreed to get into a relationship together, and he's going to be working with the seller as we negotiate against them. So it won't be any surprises or anything like that. Y'all okay with that?
I don't like the way it sounds personally, but that may not even be the situation.
Okay. So what we'll do is, if we do run into that situation, then we'll get back together and we'll talk about it. And we'll say, it's the situation, from a comfortability standpoint, how do you guys want to proceed? Because at the end of the day, we want to make it comfortable and a win-win for everybody. Okay. All right, so, and then again, the biggest difference between is attorneys that they charge by the hour. So we talked about that. All right, so new home builders and open houses. So have you all went to any new home builds? Have you seen
in the
any?
past, not recently.
Yeah, we changed our scope of what we're trying to do over time.
Okay.
When we first was looking, our credit wasn't ready and all of this. We since kind of built on it, and we changed it and changed it and changed it, and now we're at the point where we're at. So yeah, we've seen that, but that's not what we want to do.
Okay, perfect. Now, you know, if it was something that you wanted to do you understand how that scenarios work? Like when you walk into that new home consultant office and that new home consultant greets you, do you know who that person represents?
The
builders?
Absolutely. So that person represents the builder. So if there was a direction that you wanted to go, you know, not saying that it is, but if it was, then what we do is we encourage our clients to go ahead and give that consultant our business card so that they understand that you guys are represented by somebody. So it won't be any confusion. Because the sales counselor, some of them prefer for realtors not to be associated with it. But then there are some that prefer to work with realtors because they don't want to have to do both sides of the paperwork. But we just want to get it up front that there is no misunderstanding, and you just handle the business card. So we'll give you a couple of business cards before you leave. You can pass them out. Okay. So yeah. So use this. So and at that point, the on-site salesperson will call us instead of calling you guys and bugging you guys. We'll be that buffer for you. All right. And again, a benefit to you is representation. And you already knew this. The on-site salesperson represents the seller. Okay. Dana was like, I'm into the presentation.
Seller, I got it.
Okay. So shopping for your home. All right, so how many homes do you think the average buyer looks at before they make a decision?
I'd say 3 to 5.
I was gonna say about 10.
About 10, okay. Yeah, I'm surprised that you would say 3 to 5. Most people, that's what they say, 10, 15, 20. No, the average buyer looks at 5 homes before finding the right one. So what I tell people is if we're sitting out there and we're having to show you 10, 15 properties, as a professional, we're not doing our job because we're not listening to you and what you're telling us that you want, right? So if we done our part, got this filled out, put together a solid list of properties, shown you those properties, we should be able to knock it out within 5. And anything above that means that we're below average, right? Now again, there are circumstances that are out of our control. You know, times we find a house, we submit an offer on it, we get our bid, you know, so none of that's included in this average. But the point is that it doesn't take you seeing 10, 15 houses before you feel like you can buy one. It doesn't take that. And I don't want you to be apprehensive because it has happened that we take a person out and they see the first home that they see and they just fall in love with the first home that they see, right? And they may go look at some other houses, but them other houses just never do it for them. And they end up going with that first home. And we tell them that's okay because the average home buyer only looks at 5 houses before they make a decision. And really that's our goal because again, that defines how effective we are. If we can get you to fall in love with the first house we show you, that means we really was listening to what you were saying that you wanted. And we found it for you. And here you go. The most important key to finding the right home quickly is your feedback. Okay, so when we're out showing properties to you, we have a likes and dislikes form that we're going to be having you fill out. And what that does is that gives us the feedback that we need on if you don't like this property, what did you not like about it? If you do like this property, what did you like about it? One matter of fact, I'm going to show it to you because we have it on here. All right, so these are some of the things that we're going to be using when you shop for your home. So this is an MLS write-up. I'm going to click on it. Because these are some of the things like when we go on, this MLS write-up gives a lot of information when it comes to the house. It'll show you the pictures, you know, the schools. So it's filled with data, right? So we'll be using this resource when we're showing you homes. You may see some printable maps. Well, I think I have them already. Here we go. So printable maps, and these maps will give us an idea of the area of town that the homes may be located in, as well as the prices. And then it'll tell us the status, if it's active, if it's sold. So we'll have those. CMA, we'll use this to make sure that from a pricing standpoint that you're not overpaying for the house, because I don't want you to just submit any offer on the property because we're gonna have to get an appraisal done anyway. And if the house doesn't appraise out, then that's something that can cause the deal to bust out. So we don't even want to have to worry about going through all that. So we may analyze it ourselves and say, okay, we feel pretty confident that the appraiser is going to appraise this property. We shouldn't have any problems. So we do that by doing this market analysis, which is really the same method that the appraisers use. Okay, and let's see what else we have. CMA, okay, and here we go. So this is that properties likes and dislikes form that I was telling you about. And it'll have what did you like, what did you not like, what would you pay for the house and why, and how would you rate the house on a 1 to 10 for fitting your needs. And again, that feedback is important because say this house doesn't work, and we can take the information from what you didn't like or what you did like and use that to further iron down to get you the home that you want. So that's why we use that form. Okay, so the thing about the purchase contract, so we've also created some mechanisms about the purchase contract. And because it's a seller's market, because you have these multiple offer situations, because you have competing buyers, because the demand is higher than the inventory, then at times it'll put us in a situation to where we have to, if it's something that we want to move forward on, then we got to move quickly through it. All right. Well, the thing is, though, you have these forms. You have the 1 to 4 family, you have third-party financing addendum, HOA. You got all these documents that you have to sign. So what we did was that we actually created a video. It's like a 20-minute video, and it goes through all of the it goes through all of the forms that you're gonna be signing. It goes through the contract, it goes through the addendums and the disclosures. Now, we're not gonna look at it today, we ain't got 20 minutes to go through it. But we're gonna send you a link to it, and I want you to look at it now, right? So it'll put us in a position to where you'll really understand the documents already. So by the time we do find a house and it's time for us to put an offer on the property, we don't have to spend time going through every single line of the contract, because you guys would have been able to see the video and ask me any questions prior to, or Rhodesha, any questions prior to us being in a position to where we gotta submit the offer. Because we gotta put ourselves in a position where we gotta move fast, so we don't get beat out by somebody else. Because it's a highly competitive market right now for buyers. So, and then again, these are standard forms. So these aren't forms that Brooks and Davis created. These are forms that the state of Texas has created, mandated as real estate professionals that we use. They're very thorough. I like the forms. I'm glad I didn't have to create them. It made my job a whole lot easier. But it is good for you all to understand what you're signing, what you're filling out. So that's why we created that video. I'll give you a little snapshot of it. So the name of it is See How Easily You Can Understand the Real Estate Documents. When you're looking at the video, it recorded real low, so you'll have to put in your headphones, but I'll just give you maybe the first 30 seconds of it. So it's gonna pull all the forms up, and then we're just gonna walk through it. So by the time we get to filling these forms out, you know, you would have at least seen it already. Okay. Okay. So earnest money. You all familiar with what earnest money is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So earnest money, you put that up for the consideration for the seller, so the seller know that you see it, right? So I'll give you a scenario. If you're a seller, you have a house to sell, and you're selling your house for $250,000. Okay, so you get an offer for somebody's offering you $250,000, but they're going to put up $500 earnest money. All right, but then you get another offer, and they're willing to offer you $248,000, but they're willing to offer $5,000 earnest money. Which one would you take?
Probably the 5,000.
Why is that?
Because, well, like you said, it's because you're more serious about it,
Mm-hmm.
and you have the money available too to put it up there. So that means that I'm assuming that this deal is gonna go through.
So even though it's $2,000 less than what the other offer is,
I'm gonna get my money.
what you think, bro?
Well, if they got a pre-approval, I'll probably go with that $250.
You still go to $250 and at the $500?
If they got the pre-approval, especially if it's a seller's market.
Okay. So the thing is, and you guys are together. So you guys are an example of you don't know what kind of seller you're gonna get. You may get that seller that is more important that the earnest money is higher, so we can get a lower deal. So we're talking negotiation. Or you may get that seller to where the earnest money don't matter, and it's all about how much the price is. My point is that in multiple offer situations, we can use earnest money as a negotiating tool. Like if we're maxed out, but we wanna sell it, if we really want to try to beat somebody else out that may offer more than us, we could put in more earnest money, and then that'll put us in a better position to get approved, right? So earnest money is a negotiation tool that, you know, some people use it, some people don't, but we've seen it work. We've seen it beat out higher offers because we have that assurance that this person must be more confident that they can get approved. They can get
That's
done.
right, because you don't get the earnest money back.
Right. So that means that person, they gotta be confident because they must know something that I don't know as a seller. So if they willing to put that amount of money up, it's more of a sure deal. They got more skin in the game. All right. So typical earnest money is between 1% to 2% of the offer price. Okay. Inspections. You guys familiar at what point or what stage you do the inspection?
Once they accept the earnest money and
Right.
the deal is
Right.
on the plate.
So you get your option period. You got typically it's about 10 days, and then that's when we hurry up, get the inspector in there, and we have a list of inspectors that we use. Get the inspector in there, and he does the report. Now the thing about inspections is for major items, right? A lot, even with new home builds, it ain't gonna be perfect, right? But especially with a home that's been lived in for maybe, 10, 15, or 5 years, however long. So the inspector, we pay him to go in there and be extremely detailed on his report. So he's gonna give us this big, thick packet of everything wrong with the house. Now, don't think that the seller is gonna fix everything that's wrong with the house. Because the way that they're gonna see it is, well, if you want a brand new house, go get your brand new house. You knew this wasn't a brand new house when you submitted an offer. So really, it's to catch the major stuff: the roof, the foundation, the HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, like those big ticket items, right? But if it's just a gutter out of place, if it's something minor, and again, we'll make that determination once we do the report. But I don't want you to see that big thick report the inspector's going to give us, and number one, freak out and say, "Oh man, it's the worst house ever." No, the house is going to have some challenges, right? Also, I don't want you to think that a seller is going to be willing to pay for everything to get done. So that's the inspection. Okay. So typical costs, typical costs for the inspection are between $300 and $350. All right. So typical costs for appraising the home, which is paid by the buyer, and that's typically around $450. Now, do you understand what the appraisal is for, or the difference between the inspector and the appraisal?
The appraisal is the tax was what taxes.
Mm-hmm. So the inspector is, we pay that guy to go and assess the property, right? So some people say, "Oh, it won't pass inspection." See, it's not really about passing or failing inspection. Inspection is just a document to let us know what's going on with the property. The appraisal is a lot of times what people are talking about, if it's going to pass or fail. Is it going to appraise for the amount of the offer, right? So the appraisal, the best part of it is that it's going to prevent you from overpaying for the house. We see a $250,000 house, we put an offer on for $250,000. Well, when we send the appraiser out there, and the appraisal says, "Okay, well, we've looked at the numbers. This house is only worth $200,000." Well, the bank ain't gonna go forward with the deal. So we want that because we don't want to be overpaying for something that the value isn't there.
But does the appraiser look at the inspection and say, because you have foundation issues and you have a roofing issue, that lowers the value of your home?
No. So the appraiser doesn't look at the condition of the property. And the reason that they don't is because if you spend that money, then they look at the overall value of the community, right? So say the foundation is messed up, the appraiser's not gonna come back and say, "Well, this house is $20,000 less." The appraiser's gonna come back and say, "Well, this house, good to go 100%, is this amount of money." Now, but if the foundation is messed up, you know that it should be 20,000 subtracted from that number. So that's why we have both. You got the inspection and you got the appraisal. That's the decision that we make.
So why does the appraiser have to go to the property?
Yeah.
Why? If they're not looking at the condition?
So they take pictures of it. Because the worst thing an appraiser could do is doing a desktop analysis of a home, and that house ain't there no more. So they gotta go out there to do a visual to make sure that what they're appraising is actually existing.
Who does the appraiser work for?
So they really don't work for anybody. We're doing it. It's a requirement of the transaction, right? So the lender says, "I'm gonna give you $250,000, but I want to make sure that the money I'm giving you the thing that I'm giving you that $250,000 for is worth $250,000. So before I give you the money as a lender, I want to have the assurance. I'm gonna send this guy out here to do an appraisal of it to confirm that the value of this thing is what it says that it is."
So it's the security of the bank.
So it's the security of the bank, it's the security of the buyer,
Right.
because you don't want to go be on the hook for it.
Right.
So that's, but from a standpoint of who he works for, he doesn't really work for anybody. It's just a mechanism or a resource that we use as we go through the transaction. That makes sense. Now, you have to pay for it as the buyer, so it's your report. You own the report. The seller doesn't own it, the bank doesn't own it, it's yours, you keep it. But from a
So
standpoint
we
of
want a low appraisal is what we
Well, the thing is that you don't control it. Like that's one thing that they really worked on, was making sure that people couldn't manipulate the appraisals anymore, because they felt like that was something that really caused the recession. That they were having syndicates and people were manipulating the appraisers, and they was overpricing houses that really weren't worth that, and the banks were on the hook for it. So now they made it third party to the point to nobody picks the appraiser. There's a third party appraisal company. If a lender needs an appraisal, they call that company, and then that company picks the appraiser. So we don't even know who the appraiser is until they actually do the appraisal, so they can be hands off.
You know, I heard a story, like one of my friends about a year ago. Long story short, if I can remember the details.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
The appraisal.
I didn't realize the door was locked.
Go ahead, Rob.
The appraiser appraised the house like $30,000 or $40,000 higher than that same house was appraised the month before.
Mm-hmm.
And his realtor was like, you know, I stand to make a lot more money. He wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if he knew that, but the real estate agent said she stood to make more money on that deal,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a bad deal for him.
Absolutely.
And she advised him not to do it, and he didn't. And I think it came back that the appraiser guy had something to do with the bank.
Probably.
But would the bank want it to be appraised much higher?
Well, maybe not the bank, but the mortgage company. See, the mortgage company isn't the one lending the money, but the bank pays the mortgage company for them doing the transaction of connecting the lender and the buyer.
Oh, like the broker.
Yeah, like the broker.
So his commission is
So
higher.
his commission is higher. So they were probably in cahoots. The mortgage broker and the appraiser were probably in cahoots, because the mortgage broker is gonna make more money. Now the bank don't want to be in that deal because they're overpaying for something. Yeah. So yeah, it was out there. So that's why they changed the laws around the appraisal process and the lending process.
So how can you check the appraisal process?
Well,
That's
again,
a
with
buyer.
that, well, like I said, when I showed you that market analysis, so you have a real estate professional that can analyze those numbers too, because we use the same method the appraiser's gonna use. So that's your check. Now, appraiser's gonna be more, his number is always gonna be better than a realtor, because they've been trained in a different way, and they're more specific, they're more deeper. But you can use a realtor's analysis to check, like, if it's too far wide of a gap, then something's not going wrong, something's wrong, something's up here. So you just use that realtor, you use that CMA or that market analysis to do a check and balances for your appraisal report.
But I'm just curious, now you're right back at trusting the realtor and the appraiser, which was the one who was in cahoots in his deal in the first place.
It wasn't a realtor, it was the mortgage broker. So you have the mortgage broker who facilitates the financing and the buyer, and then you have the real estate broker who facilitates the home and the buyer. So the mortgage broker was the one that was in cahoots with the appraiser. The real estate broker was your friend's person that said don't do the deal. So that was this person. You see what I'm saying? But now they changed this process to where the mortgage broker and the appraiser don't interact at all, because of that scenario you just described. But now if you get an appraisal, this person here, the real estate person, can do an analysis to check and balance this appraisal report. That makes sense? And that was the CMA that I showed you here, is what we would do to make sure that the price is solid. Okay? All right. So when do you pay for it? I put right now, that doesn't mean today, but the earnest money, the option money, the inspection, and the appraisal money, all of that is paid up front. So none of that is paid at the closing table. So once you find the house, you gotta put the earnest money up, that goes to the title company. Now that is credited towards your closing costs and the loan. The option period, same thing, you gotta pay it up front, but that's credited towards your closing costs. Now the inspection, that's not credited, because that's a service that you're paying for. And the appraisal is not credited, that's a service that you're paying for. But those are your upfront costs. Okay, so loan approval, that means you now have full loan commitment. Now, this is the biggest part of stress when it comes to the home buying process, is getting final loan approval. This is after we found the house, we've got it under contract, we've gone through the option period, we have negotiated, done our inspection. We may have renegotiated with the seller a little bit more based on what the inspection says. We've agreed to the terms, and now we're ready to move forward. So that's this part right here. So now you gotta submit all your stuff to the lender, to the mortgage person, to the financing person. They can package everything, your bank statements, your tax return. But they look at it, but now they wanna see this, they're gonna do an in-depth look at your credit. They're gonna look at it with a fine-tooth comb. They're gonna call you and they're gonna ask you for the same document sometime. They're gonna have questions about what came out of your bank account. They're gonna have questions about what's this line right here. Even though you got a 700 credit score, there's this little line right here that on your credit report. What's that all about? They're gonna want to see. They're gonna be really intrusive, and a lot of people don't realize how intrusive that process is, and they get taken back. So, up front, we say it's gonna be really intrusive. Don't be surprised. When you get to that point, your mortgage person is gonna wanna know they're gonna ask you for a lot of documents, a lot of information when you get to that point. Now, when you think about it though, it makes sense. If I'm gonna lend you $200,000, I gotta be able to trust that I'm gonna get my money back if I'm a bank. So I wanna know as much as I can about the people that I'm about to lend money to. So that's why that process is so intrusive, because the bank is trying to make sure that you're gonna pay them back. And that's why they do it like that. But once all that's done, then we got full loan commitment, and it is a reason to celebrate. Because once we get that full loan commitment, we get our clear to close, and we go to the closing table. So typically, you get full loan commitment, and you get your closing table. I mean, you get your clear to close, and then we can go to the closing table. Okay. So, closing takes place at the title company. That's the very last step. That's where you bring your cashier's check for your down payment and your closing costs, if any of that exists. And then that's when the title company is going to finalize the transaction. You bring your license or an official photo ID. You give that to the escrow officer, and then we close on the house. You get your keys once everything's funded, and then that's it. So with us, you're always going to be having a team or a specialist that you're going to be working with. So not a salesperson, a consultant, or a specialist. And the benefits is that knowledge, availability, and communication are the things that we build things around. So we know what we're doing. We know this market. We know this process. From an availability standpoint, you'll have Rhodesia. You'll also have my information. You'll have April's information. So you got a group of people that you should never have a problem with getting somebody on the phone. You need to talk to somebody about something. You have multiple people that you can contact, and the same thing with communication. So we feel like that's one of the biggest things missing in our industry is communication. People returning phone calls. So we feel that gap. All right. We're client centered. So we have whatever you need, we have it. And even after you buy your house, if you need something, call us. And it doesn't just have to necessarily be when it comes to the real estate industry. If you want to know a hairdresser, we got hairdressers. If somebody cut the yard, we got that. TV repair dude, hey, what you need? Call us. Call Brooks and Davis. We know people. Because we're out here doing this thing, we're meeting people, we're building our database, we got resources, we got a network. And we do all of that for the benefit of our clients. All right, and then our goals to do the best price, fewest hassles in the time frame that you desire. So, best price, fewest hassles in the time frame that you desire. That's our goal for our relationship here, and what we want to accomplish for you. Okay. Very last thing is that referrals is the lifeblood of our business. So, you know, when you're at work, friends, school, Facebook, typically, and I like to have this conversation now because birds of a feather flock together. When a person's going to buy a house, they start talking about their process, and then, hey, you know what, we're thinking about getting a house next month, or we're thinking about, you know, look at our house, we're wanting to sell our house this month. So you start running into people that have a real estate need, right? So what we ask is that we ask you guys to call us and let us know so we can reach out to them, because that's what grows our business. Our goal is to exceed your expectations and to offer a greater experience for not just you all, but every stakeholder in the real estate community. And if we do that successfully, we want you guys to tell people about us so we can get more referrals, right? So as we go through this process, if you all run into anybody, will you all call us so we can help them out too?
Yeah, we commit and we do this with you.
Okay.
Definitely. That's understood.
Perfect. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. You all have any questions about anything that we went through? I know it's a lot.
Nah, I asked him.
Yes? Okay, good stuff. All right.
I have no questions.
Okay, so you guys keep that. What we're gonna do is, because they're trying to get into this conference room, we're gonna go ahead and take it back into the office, and we're gonna finalize, because I don't want us to rush out. So we're just gonna finish everything in the office.
All right.
Just leave it.